The following video is about Mexican-American resilience, athleticism, reclaiming culture, and instilling pride and dignity into community. All over Kansas, Mexicans were treated like second-class citizens. In Wichita, blacks and browns suffered from segregation, manifested in all aspects of life, including sports. Baseball teams from respective racial groups could play against each other, for example, African Americans against their white counterparts, but they could not play on the same team. Many of the teams adopted indigenous and Mesoamerican team names such as Los Aztecas and Los Indios. Camaraderie was established and strong relationships were created as families developed community solidarity, held together by culture and community. Catholic churches were also instrumental in providing opportunities for Mexican and Mexican-American families, including sport for athletic contests. In Newton, Kansas, Our Lady of Guadalupe built a softball stadium that became an icon of pride in the community. And although the tournaments are no longer held in this stadium, the memories are etched in the minds and the hearts of the people that played in this field. The oldest fast-pitch softball tournament in the country celebrated its 75th annual Kansas Fast Pitch Tournament in Newton, Kansas on June 30th through July 2nd, 2023. The Mexican-American tournaments throughout Kansas included the cultural traditions of la fiesta, la música, baile, folklorico, and Mexican cuisine. It now has another placa that will be used to tell the story of a once invisible minority. The various Mexican-American halls of fame are Kansas stories which tell of the valor and courage that Mexican Americans and their descendants demonstrated in the face of social marginalization, using legitimate means to open doors. Their stories are testimonies of their success. They suffered defeats but were victorious in their quest to become visible. The Kansas Hall of Fame pays homage to the generations of Mexican Americans that hit more than home runs. They have become stars in their own rights, overcoming institutionalized racism and discrimination. The many placas are symbols of pride, a message that Mexican Americans can compete with any other group when systems are fair and just. Persistence, athleticism, hard work, courage, cultural pride, and ganas all came together as the annual Newton tournaments have been elevated to national recognition.
Well, I'm always looking forward to this tournament. It's a family tradition. I can't tell you how many I've been to. I'm sure I've been to over 60 of them. Haven't been to all of them, thank goodness, but I'm not that old yet. Basically, it's a reunion of family, friends that you played with and against, and pretty much that's what I look forward to.
We had some good moments playing in the 4th of July tournament. We'd go to the Newton tournament, and we'd also go to Emporia and surrounding tournaments. And it wasn't really anything that stood out, that it was just a bunch of good friends playing, having a good time. And as we got older, we had, everybody started having their families and stuff. It was just more fun. It was more family time.
That's when I knew Luis Ramirez, and I asked him, I want to be in a softball team if he was coaching. He goes, oh yeah, he says, I got a team, but he was trying to get the younger guys, Harvey, Ramon, like all those guys, and Chape, so we started, we got it together, and we were good little ball players, and I started pitching, and I didn't have that much experience, but, I started there, and we were playing in the city league. We came out, I think it was second one time and first one time. So, we were doing really good, and we'd go to the tournaments, and we were what you call spoilers, I guess. We could beat a good team, but then another team that, wasn't that great, they'd beat us, But that's, that's softball, and that's the way it goes. But
most of the kids there in the north end where I grew up, the Del Castillos, Richard Gonzalez, we all got together and formed a team, and we were coached by a very excellent, not only coach, but human being in Luis Ramirez and his compadre Tino. And we He coached us. He took that fight on because we were, like I say, 15, 16 years old. So he didn't know, I don't know whether he didn't know what he was getting into, but he did it. And he coached us for several years.
Well, for me, one of the biggest pleasures I get is being with the family and playing in the tournament here in Newton. It's having all my grandchildren and grandnephews. We'll be having 9 of them play in the tournament. Along with that is that we're having their fathers play along with them.
The atmosphere is just second to none. I feel like if you really want to understand Great Plains Mexican-American culture, this is where you have to be. You have to experience it. You have to see all the teams that come in, the food, the music, the camaraderie, just meeting new people. The original team that I started researching, they basically got together in 1946. I had the opportunity to interview probably 6 to 8 of those guys before they passed. Obviously, it was a different time. It was post-World War II. The church, the priest there, Father Clary, is the individual who decided that you guys need something, a church-sponsored activity, and that's when he came up with the idea for the fast-pitch softball, and that's when they got it all together. So when you talk about the great teams, I always go with the original, simply because of the fact that these are the guys who really got it off the ground, and they were really good ball players. They loved to play. They were one of the original teams to help get the Newton tournament off the ground, and that's really kind of the foundation there.
As part of our church, we would have softball tournaments at a place called Hillersgrove. We had fast pitch softball games, a chance to eat some excellent Mexican food, la comida, but more importantly is to be able to have a chance to mingle with everybody. The Padres were a team that we started in Plains fast pitch softball. All of us really were families of folks who worked at Cudahy, the Cudahy packing plant, during the 50s and the 60s and into the 70s. And because of that, we all grew up in the same neighborhoods. We played baseball together, as I mentioned. And then we kind of evolved, and I say evolved, into softball. Because the other cities had more of a tradition and history in fast pitch softball, we were the ones that really kind of started that process in our neighborhood.
Ortega was the one that started the team up. We started out in the church league, and that's where pretty much every team that starts out kind of start out in the church league, and then other than the city. And I remember him approaching me, said, "Well, can you talk to Father?" And I said, "Well, I'll talk to him," and so I did. And Father said, "Well, I'll sponsor you guys if you guys come to church." And so we went to church, and the whole team went. And they probably weren't even Catholic, but we. So Father says, "Okay, well, you guys are here. I'll sponsor you." So that's how we first got sponsored, and we were called Los Santos at that time. And
he really changed my life around because I was one of the kids in high school getting in trouble. And matter of fact, 3 or 4 of the guys that I was in school with that junior year, they joined the service because of the Vietnam War. My dad wouldn't let me go because I was still too young. He had to sign for me. He wouldn't do it. So I was one that was left behind of our group, our little guys we used to run around with.
My favorites are definitely playing alongside my brothers. My brother Sparkle playing third, my brother George shortstop, my brother Raymond playing second base, and I was catching. So that was always something memorable. I got to play 1 year with my son, Nicholas, so that was fun.
The one that helped me with my sling was Pete Gomez, Blanco Gomez from Topeka. Because when I was going to graduate school there, he and I played on the American GI Forum team down there. And he showed me how to throw my little low rise, and my drop. And I taught my granddaughter how to do it. The one that I haven't seen that I had a lot of respect for was Alan Burro, shoulders. Big boy like that, he got big shoulders. Man, he had a rise ball on him. And I got there, he used to crack me up. Some umpires have a tendency to get on the back side, and they catch this side, but they don't catch the inside pitch. And you can't tell them nothing because they're God behind the plate. So one time I think either Pete or Al was throwing, And I think it was Harvey.
Harvey.
It says, okay, throw that one. I got it. Okay, what they had a signal. And so when he threw it, he dropped the glove and he hit the umpire right dead in the face.
I was playing for Topeka Livingstons. We'll end up playing, the powerhouse, Los Amigos, over there at Observation Point on their home field. And we were playing for the championship, beating them 3-2, and I got most valuable pitcher, and that was great because we beat them on their home field, and that was nice in front of all the people.
I started playing with Topeka. And then that's when I got on with a team from Livingston's Fashions. And that's where the Escobar brothers were playing. And the one tournament that I'll always remember, and I always wanted, and the guys always wanted it too, because it was called the Bravos, the Kansas City Bravos out of Missouri. And we beat them, they beat us, but it was a good game. But at that tournament, it was there in Kansas City, in their own backyard, but they were going to change their names from the Bravos to the Amigos. This was in 1971. Now, on Sunday at 12 o'clock, high noon, we were going to play to see who sits back and waits for the championship. So who did we beat? The Amigos. Of course, it was tough, and we beat them 3-2. So they had to go down, and we just sat back and wait. Championship wasn't until about 5:30 or 6 o'clock. So guess who we meet at the championship game? The Amigos. But this time, they brought in a pitcher from Texas. He was a left-hander, and he threw hard, and oh my God, we struggled with him, But we came back and we beat him 2-1, for the championship.
I remember Bill Roman. Bill, and I'll tell a little story after maybe later on, but Bill was just an awesome first baseman. And Bill was a leader on the team, and he kept the team together. He also played basketball, but Bill was he was a sportsman. He honored the game, and he honored every single player that was on the team. He always gave us motivation, and even when we were down and we were getting beat, Bill would never give up.
Yeah, there was a couple of fights and during the games, and umpires tried to break it up and stuff. One time I was playing with Newton. We were playing in the City League of Wichita, and somebody popped off about somebody had said, hey, he just batted, and they said, no, it was his brother that just batted, and then one of them popped off about, well, they all look alike. So gloves came off, and actually gloves came on, and it was just one of them deals where you always got that feeling that there was, it was on the edge. A lot of times it wasn't spoken about, but you could tell there was a lot of prejudice and stuff, especially when we were kicking their butts. But I mean, Paul Vegas told me that there was a certain day that they could go swimming at the city pool here because they drained the pool that evening, and they would have fresh water the next day for all the other people. Just stuff like that. And you hear stuff like that, but it's probably not anything like it was for like our parents, our grandparents and stuff that came.
One of my brothers said he was a lot darker.
This was in Newton.
That was in Newton, yeah.
Yeah, he went there, and as I said, we have different complexions. Yeah. Some brothers are very dark, some brothers are very light skinned. They're at the train station eating. So my brother Bill went to the bathroom, and they were sat down, they were ordering, and then Brother Bill came and sat down. He was dark complected, and he said, no, you can't eat here. Now my brother Fertino said, wait, hey, he's with me, that's my brother. Oh, that's your brother? You can't eat here either. And they had to leave. Oh yeah, Dodge City, Garden City, all up in those places, as I say, they had signs. But again, this is like World War II in the 40s and stuff like that. They had signs, no dogs, no Mexicans, No ifs, ands, buts about it.
I remember specifically some of the stories that my grandma in Hutchinson used to tell me. She went out to Dodge City one time, and they used to have the signs in the store windows that said "No dogs or Mexicans allowed." And it was just understood in Hutchinson that if you went to a diner or something like that, don't even think about going in the front door. You go to the back and you knock on the door in the alley, and they'll hand you a menu, and then you can take it with you as you go. And I also, like I said, my mother remembers when she went to the Fox Theater in Hutch that you had to sit in the balcony. And it really wasn't even anybody yelling at you per se. It was just understood. That's where you go. If you want to see the movie, that's where you sit. If you want, food, this is the process. And I've been told before that it was B Street is where, at the end of the day, you need to be on the south side of B Street. You stay on your own side of town. The biggest thing that I remember was just you were playing with your family, you were playing with your friends, and you represented the community. And I'm not talking about the community of Hutchinson, I'm talking about the Mexican-American community of Hutchinson. Everybody wanted to be a Kansas City Royal. I was the same way. Me and my buddy Rudy Garcia, we decided we were going to take our Hutch Recreation Commission baseball team, and we told everybody on the team, our team name is going to be the Lobos. We're not going to be the Royals, we're not going to be the Bombers, we're not going to be this, we're not going to be that, we're going to be the Lobos, because that was the fast pitch team. And Rudy and I just decided that's what the name was going to be, and nobody gave us any grief about it, so that's what we were that year. We obviously wanted to be the Royals, which was our fantasy, but we knew we could be Lobos.
The 75th annual Fast Pitch Mexican American Softball Tournament is in a town that I was born in. I grew up in Wichita, but I was born in Newton, and they're playing. The 75th annual was played there. It is officially, by all of the research that we looked at, it is the oldest tournament in the country of Mexican Americans. That at times even some of the players have made it nationally, and some even internationally. Several played in the military as they went to the service and came back. The sky's the limit. I think that right now they are creating a story that's untold. A legacy was started, and you never know how it's going to turn out. And you look backward 75 years and you realize that it's there, and nobody can take that from us.
I never really understood the significance of the cultural heritage until I actually got later in my life and actually started to play a little bit. And I said, well, wait a minute, there's a lot going on here. I've always been fascinated by history, and even as a young age I could see this is kind of a big deal, because it's not necessarily just the actual playing. Cultural assimilation is what's going on here. And a lot of what I began to understand was that through softball there was a lot of cultural assimilation that was going on. You started to play Anglo teams, you started to play the African American teams, and then the big thing that I really I became fascinated in was travel to Anglo communities. Obviously in the 1940s, you went, you played your game, you didn't go to a restaurant, you didn't even think about spending the night, you played your ball games, you shook hands, and then you drove yourself home. It was only later, when I started playing with the Hutch Lobos, that it suddenly kind of occurred to me that, well, wait a minute, we're traveling on buses, we're staying in hotels. This is a process of assimilation, where all of a sudden it's okay to do this.
As far as keeping this tournament alive, I hope they continue to help do that. And this year we were having a Hall of Fame banquet, and that's helped to keep the thing going. But I would say there was over 60 Hall of Fame members that showed up. So it was a great time, and everybody seemed to enjoy it.
What do you see happening that there's not as many teams?
There's here, at least in Newton, I'm not real sure, I can't speak for out of town. There's just not that many Mexican kids playing baseball. And and that was our natural feed when I started playing, was that you played baseball up and through high school, and if you didn't go on to college, then you started playing fast pitch. Some of us played before we got out of high school, but for the most part, that's what was our natural feed, was from baseball. There's just not that many kids playing baseball anymore. Parents, for whatever reason, get them involved, and I'm sounding terrible here, but they get them involved in soccer, and soccer can play year round. You know, indoor, outdoor. You know, it's declined. I think our new tournament director, Todd Zenner, has really helped, and he's gone into Texas and he's gone into Oklahoma City and got teams coming. So that helps. You know, it helps to help a guy go out that's willing to go out there and travel and get teams, and he's doing a good job of that. So I think it's a higher class of fast pitch now, but I think it's helped.
I think the first thing that has to happen is that they have to be able to be aware of it, the role that softball played, and in our not only our community but also communities, for example, in Kansas City, in Emporia, Wellington. If you were to look at those communities, I suspect that you're going to find the same kind of friendships and relationships that we had in Wichita, again because of the game. And so I think one is that the state needs to become aware of it, appreciate it, and most importantly, really take lessons from that. What are the kinds of things that young folks, young people can do to be able to come together, essentially, and form the friendships and the bonding, you know, that we formed, and perhaps that might help deal with some of the issues that we have with some of the youth populations.
It's an appreciable task, and I don't think a lot of people really understand how difficult it really is to keep this thing going, especially in these times, in this economy, et cetera. And some of the ideas that they've come up with have been pretty innovative in terms of keeping people coming. And when I say coming, I'm not just talking from 50 miles away, I'm talking from traditionally Texas, Mexico, Colorado. I think it's incredibly important, and you get to see that here. And really, you only get to see it only in Newton.
I would like to share a poem that I wrote after we did research and after I had personally been involved in the Newton tournaments as a younger man. It's called From the Hall of Shame to the Hall of Fame. Many came from La Tierra de Mexico, Guanajuato, Chihuahua, Michoacán, Guerrero, fleeing violent sounds of revolution in search of life's solution. They came to work as immigrants, arriving into Kansas with smooth mitts and sharp tongues, seen as bilingual misfits, with fingernails ready to scratch the surface of a society with the wasp's veneer. Oh dear. And to hear an unfamiliar language brought in ships by European ancestors, their bodies were already broken, caused by hard work in fields once sown by their ancestors, where Mother Earth was watered by tears y el sufrimiento de una gente humilde. Their gloves resembled mama's flour tortillas, flat and warm, pounded by the bolillos of the time, where soft butter was often spread to soothe open wounds of oppression. Others arrived in boxcars, owned by the Santa Fe Railroad, with wrinkled brown hands wet from sweat and rain-drenched torment. Their placas were etched with scarred backs caused by whips flung by haciendada owners, creators of La Raza Bronce, as races intermingled under the cover of Grandmother Earth. They were nuestros antepasados, laying down railroad tracks at a time when we were called wetbacks. They were allowed in education, Hall of Fames, halls of shame, segregated by color and language, placed in barrios full of anguish, where they suffered from degradation by institutions who also suffered from a form of deviance and bigotry, but didn't know it or didn't care. For generations, they worked hard to transform halls of shame into halls of fame, and many gravitated into fast-pitch softball, responding to a call to bring pride and honor to La Raza. They were heroes of a time ready to play, calling them to say penance and pay tithes to a church that has now closed the door to even the score. They heeded the call to a greater deed, fulfilling a need, an emptiness where social justice hovered like a cloud ready to burst open, where pitchers stood on sacred ground on top of a pitching mound to fulfill empty promises of justice and humanity caused by the racism of the time. A story about a group with no contemporary nursery rhyme, whose cries have been transformed into a contemporary corrido llena de ruido, telling a wretched tale of a people creating their own destiny. And today, They entered the Newton Mexican-American Kansas Fast Pitch Hall of Fame, not for people to remember their names, but as an encouragement to show others how la gente can change the Hall of Shame into a Hall of Fame.